We have the greatest fans in the world that support this brand and support this sport, and to be able to give Chandler Alvarez and Mo Newton and Karyn Strauss basically the totality of this mega card that we put together for pay-per-view to fans for free on Saturday, November 2nd on Spike. It's awesome for us. It'll be awesome for fans. It'll reach millions of consumers. And while we're disappointed that Tito's injured and that we're not going to be able to see the main event, we are thrilled that we're going to be able to present the rest of that card to everybody on free TV on Spike, the home to MMA. So literally, that is the announcement, and I would turn it over to Kevin K from there, my partner at Spike.
Yeah, I don't think I can say it any better than that. I mean, we're incredibly excited to have that card on Spike. You know, it's exactly what Bjorn described, and disappointed, of course, and we hope that Tito's okay. And we look forward to seeing that in the future. But in the meantime, this is just a tremendous opportunity for all of the fans to get a tremendous night of fights, and we're excited to have it. And as Bjorn said, 9 o'clock next Saturday on Spike, and with 2 hours of prelims on Spike.com.
Okay, operator, let's open the call up for some questions.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, if you would like to ask a question, please signal by pressing star 1 on your telephone keypad. If you are using a speakerphone, please make sure your mute function is turned off to allow your signal to reach our equipment. Once again, that's star 1, and we'll pause for a moment to give everyone an opportunity to signal. And we'll go first to Chad Cooper with the Examiner.
Hey, guys. Two-part question for Bjorn. Bjorn, first, was there ever a backup plan in case one of these fighters got hurt to put someone in the main event, or it was always Tito versus Rampage Part 2? Will the Fight Master finale be a part of that Spike.com undercard, or will it be on Spike TV?
Yeah, well, I'll answer backwards. Riggs versus Bronzoulis will be part of the Spike show, which is awesome. We've been waiting for that fight for some time. Obviously, Joe got injured. But Mike's ready, Joe's ready, Joe looks as good as he's ever looked, and Mike is just raring to get in. So that will be part of the actual Spike show that you see on Spike TV live and free to 100 million homes. So incredibly excited about that. And then, yeah, there was a backup plan, and the backup plan was that I had spoken with Attila Veg at length about 5 weeks ago, 6 weeks ago actually now. And I spoke with Attila, and I asked him how he was doing. He said he was back in training. Obviously, the wheels were already in motion with all of the fights that we had announced on this show, on this card, and everything was said. But I said to him, look, I said, if you want to come in here and train, I'll pay you to come in and train, and I'll pay you to be ready. And if something happens that makes sense, I'd put you on the show. But, look, the reality here was just that this, we've talked many times, and I've been real public about it. We have an incredible relationship with Spike, and we put amazing, amazing fights on Spike. And we will do pay-per-view. There will be pay-per-views under the Bellator banner. But sitting down literally for the last 24 hours and talking to Kevin and the entire team over at Spike and my whole team, it just made sense to keep this literally where it is right now, to keep it on Spike TV, to give fans these great fights for free, and to move forward from there in terms of our natural progression. Attila Veg's our champion. We're going to have an interim world title fight. The winner of that fight's going to fight Veg for our world title. So that just made the most sense instead of trying to square peg round hole something last minute.
Is Rampage and Tito still on the table for the future?
Oh, absolutely. I've probably had more conversations with, the only person I've spoken with more than Kevin K over the last 24 hours has been Rampage. I've been regularly in contact with Tito. He's obviously devastated. The neck injury that he suffered is, as odd as it sounds, unrelated to the previous neck surgery that he had that kept him out. But yeah, I mean, they're both. I mean, Rampage is raring to go, in incredible shape. And I've kept track of his knees since we had that process done that Kobe Bryant has had such success with Rampage's knees, so he's raring to go. So, yeah, they're both absolutely on the docket. Tito's going to take a significant amount of time, but yeah, absolutely, we're going to keep working with both of them and putting on great fights with both of them.
Thanks, guys.
And our next question comes from Eric Fontanez with MMAweekly.com.
Thanks for the time, guys. For Bjorn, I wanted to find out if there's any indication on when you'd want Rampage back in the cage. Have there been any plans? You said you've been communicating with him over the past 24 hours. And also, was there how long have you guys known about Tito's injury, and do you know how he actually injured his neck?
Literally, Tito went in about 2 days ago and got the x-rays done and the MRI, supplied me with the doctor's information literally a little bit over 24 hours ago, and said, look, it just, all kudos to Tito. Tito wanted to move forward. I mean, Tito wanted to progress, wanted to fight, and his doctor just said absolutely not. I mean, his doctor went as far as to say, given the fracture and where it's located, if he were slammed on his head in the wrong way or he were hit in the wrong way, that conceivably the fracture could even go as far as to cause paralysis. And Tito was still interested in trying to figure out a way to move forward, which I wasn't in favor of. His doctor wasn't in favor of. I mean, life's too important. He's got 2 beautiful kids, and, you can live to fight another day, as they say. So really have had all the substantive information now for about a day, and finally got everybody on the phone to be able to make decisions. And on the Rampage front, literally as quickly as possible. I mean, obviously there have been a lot of moving parts with Kevin and I and the team and Spike and Bellator and everybody working together to put this magical show on Spike TV for free. But don't think we're not thinking about Rampage, and we're going to hopefully be in a position in the next week to make some great announcements on that as well.
And one more question: were there any calls made to potentially replace Tito? And if so, did you have any names in mind?
Yeah, I'm always hesitant. If we were going with it, I would shout about him. But we had a lot of different conversations about a lot of different people. But it just it didn't make sense on such short notice. I mean, look, the reality with Rampage is he's had an amazing camp. His knees are back. And I've got, a lot of the people that have been training with him are people that both fight for this company and that I talk to on a regular basis. He's better than he's been in probably the last 2.5 years. So, it's just that when you're talking about Quinton Rampage Jackson and you're talking about him being back in a position and in condition that he hasn't been in a long time, it's not an easy task to call somebody and go, hey, by the way, I know it's 8 days out, but how about fighting Rampage? So there were a lot of ideas, a lot of thoughts, but they haven't come to fruition, and the Rampage situation will play itself out, I hope, in very short order.
All right. Thank you very much.
And we'll go next to Marcus Villegas with Fight Hub TV.
Hey, Bjorn, thanks for giving me the time.
Sure.
Question would be is when and how did you find out about this?
Basically, Tito called me and said, I've got really substantial, I've known Tito for some time. He actually texted me. He said, look, I've got really substantial pain in my neck, and I've got to get in immediately to see somebody. I actually arranged for him to go in and get it looked at immediately and get an X-ray and MRI done. And the X-ray showed a legitimate fracture that was obvious to the human eye. And then we immediately made the move to get it over to his specialist who'd done his surgery in Las Vegas. He got a hold of it, and he said, not a chance. So it happened in pretty quick sequence.
And did they say anything about how long he might be out for?
The doctor in Vegas said that it's just that healing processes depend on, each individual, and that there was no absolute assurance that the healing process would give rise to a level of confidence that where he would be completely confident greenlighting Tito fighting. But he said, look, if it heals and it heals 100%, which it could do in, 4 months, 6 months, 8 months, he could reassess the situation and look at it and then render a new opinion. But in its current state, he said Tito shouldn't be doing anything that could give rise to any kind of trauma or impact to the neck. So that's a good question, and I'll probably be able to get more information on that in terms of what the expectation is. But, the terminology of 6 months or so was talked about on the call.
And besides that, was Tito 100%? He didn't have any other injuries coming into the fight?
Yeah, I was just on Adam Carolla last Sunday night, or I'm losing track of nights, but I think it was last Sunday night with Tito. And he looked great. I mean, I think he was at 219. He looked terrific. He was exactly where he wanted to be. It's extremely disappointing. I mean, this is a fight that I wanted to see for a long time. It was a fight that, amongst two giants in the MMA space that I've wanted to see. And again, like I said earlier, it doesn't mean that this fight's not going to happen at some point. It's just not going to happen now, and it's not going to happen in the foreseeable future. But Tito looked great. He was in shape. He seemed to be in pretty good spirits. So it's disappointing on that front, but the exciting aspect of it is a lot of people are going to get a chance to see this live and free on Spike.
And my final question is, what did Rampage tell you about all this?
Rampage was, obviously upset with the situation, was ready to fight, but, just has been repeatedly saying to me over the last, 14 to 16 hours, I'm ready to go. How are we going to put this in motion? I'm ready to fight. I have not felt this good literally since I was champ. I feel awesome. My knees haven't felt this good since I was 20 years old. I'm ready to fight. So in addition to getting ready to for tonight's show, live and free on Spike, which should be awesome, and next week's show, which is the biggest, most spectacular event we've ever put on, I'm also out working with our talent development team trying to figure out how we're going to get Rampage fighting and how we're going to get Rampage fighting literally ASAP. So there's a lot on our desk right now, but I got great partners at Spike that are working through it with us, so it's all going in the right direction. I am more hopeful than any MMA fan that Quinton Rampage Jackson will be fighting in the next month.
Okay, thank you, Warren. Bjorn.
Yep.
Our next caller is Bo Von Cyclone with AXS TV.
Bryce, Bo's sitting here beside me. I wanted to ask you, was there a big discussion with you and Kevin about trying to go forward with the pay-per-view even without Ortiz and Rampage, or was it a pretty easy call to just put it on free TV?
Well, it's such a big card, and the names of cornerstones of Bellator and what we've done in terms of our evolution as a brand. I think we've got the greatest lightweight in the world on the show in Mike Chandler, and one of the best lightweights in the world, and Eddie Alvarez in a huge seminal rematch. And I think, I've said many times, Karyn is, if everybody in the world at 145 pounds started fighting, Karyn and Jose Aldo would be the last two guys standing. So it's epic fights. So we thought about it and we talked about it, but like I said when I kicked off, I got the greatest partners in the world at Spike, and they know the space. And Spike is as dedicated and as focused on doing what's right for MMA fans as I am, and as I hope every member of my organization is. And it wasn't long before Kevin and I were looking at each other saying, you know what, it's a kidney shot to both of us, but boy, we could put this on Spike and we could give fans an amazing night of fights that they otherwise would have paid for free. And have an enormous audience enjoy what's going to be a spectacular night. And we came to the conclusion pretty quickly. Obviously, there were a lot of boxes we had to check to get there, and a lot of people we had to talk to in terms of partners who've done a lot of work and been amazing with us in the lead up to this pay-per-view, affiliates and partners at InDemand and DirecTV and others. But Kevin and I were of a like mind, and it's great to have a partner that thinks that way.
Did anybody try to change your mind of those pay-per-view partners and say, well, that's a great card you have, let's give it a shot anyway?
I think the overall tone was everybody was incredibly enthusiastic about it. It was a stacked card. It was the essence of what Kevin and I wanted to put together, and what the whole team here at Bellator wanted to put together is we wanted to create a card that literally from start to finish had amazing fights on it that people would want to see, and that had huge significance and played into, who we are and what we're about, and featured some of the greatest fighters in the world. We've got great relationships with our affiliate partners throughout the country, and some of them are like, wow, that's still an amazing show. But, remember that those same people benefit by us having an enormous audience of great MMA fans be able to see this for free. So we were able to get to the right answer and to an answer that benefits MMA fans pretty quick.
Thanks, Bjorn.
Yep.
We'll go next to Ariel Hawani with MMAfighting.com.
Hey, thanks for the time. How does, if any way, this affect Eddie Alvarez? Was he supposed to get a pay-per-view cut, as that was talked about? Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, it doesn't. It doesn't affect the Chandler Alvarez fight at all, except for that it positions it obviously as the main event on an amazing free show on Spike. A fight that I think everyone had always envisioned would be a large-scale pay-per-view fight, given that Alvarez, Chandler 2, Chandler Alvarez, or the first one that we did was the best MMA fight I've ever seen. And I've seen more MMA fights than probably anybody on earth, or at least amongst the top 4 or 5 on earth. So everybody always thought about it as a pay-per-view, but deal structure-wise, it doesn't change the structure with any of the fighters, and it positions them as the main event on a huge show, which will probably be one of the highest rated shows we've ever done, and an amazing, amazing night. So it doesn't impact anybody.
He doesn't lose out on like a pay-per-view bonus or anything of that nature?
Not at this point, no. And, that can change as we move into a pay-per-view structure, but this is free on Spike TV. So it's a free show on Spike, and nobody's losing any money. Everybody, I think, at the lightweight side of this and throughout the card, everybody's doing pretty well. So it should be an amazing, amazing night of fights.
And Rampage next fight, you said you want him to fight ASAP. Is there a chance because the Tito fight is in there, that he gets into the light heavyweight title picture and fights for the belt, or are you looking to do some kind of a special attraction fight with him?
I don't know, TBD. I mean, look, the reality is we don't have a tournament up and running right now, and Rampage is ready to go. Rampage is ready to show everybody that he's the Rampage of old, the Rampage of Arona and Liddell. So, my job right now with my talent development team is to try to find a great fight for Rampage in incredibly short order. And nobody on this call would be happier than me to be able to get that fight done in the next 4 weeks. So we're working on
maybe me, Bjorn.
Except maybe my partner Kevin. So we're working with
Rampage. The ratings on Rampage's show on Rampage for Real last night went up 24%. We know that people want to see him and they're enjoying that show.
Okay, and one more for either of you. How does it work in the business of pay-per-view and television when you have something lined up as a pay-per-view and then you don't do the pay-per-view and you put it on free television? I mean, do you take a hit that way? I think Bjorn referred to it as. What is that? What's the cost involved with that? Is it a simple switch? You're just putting it on free TV now, or is there something that you have to do with the pay-per-view providers in order to move it to free television?
No, it's just a discussion with all our partners, and frankly, they were great about it, and they all understood everybody's disappointed. Everybody wanted the fight, but everybody also agreed that if that fight couldn't happen, they were okay with us moving it to Spike. Everybody, I think, is cognizant of the fact that we're trying to, build the Bellator brand and build the Bellator brand with fans, and we think this is giving the fans the fights free is probably the best thing that we can do under the circumstances, and our partners agreed with that. There's no real financial hit. Anybody who's bought the pay-per-view will obviously get a full refund. But really, there's no financial hit for us, or them, frankly.
Okay, and then one last one for Bjorn. You mentioned that Tito, his doctor said a bad move could, God forbid, lead to paralysis. Considering his age and his issues in the past with his neck, I mean, do you feel comfortable, even if he comes back from this, to put him back in the cage, if that's lingering out there?
That's an analysis I think we have to do once the healing process has taken place. We've all seen it. There are some healing processes that take place with athletes in different sports. We've seen it in MMA, we've seen it in football, where you can come back from what can be characterized as a catastrophic potential career-ending injury and still perform at a spectacular level. So we'll really have to do that analysis once the healing has completed and we're able to look at all the x-rays and do all the necessary tests. But I can tell you he was in great shape. I can tell you that his intent is still to fight. I can tell you that my conversations with him over the last day and a half to 2 have been indicative of somebody who intends to fight again, intends to come back from this, and intends to perform at a high level. So not a guy that I would doubt. So, we'll see how the healing process goes, and then we'll make a judgment call from there. But it's going to be about Tito. It's going to be about us talking to him. It's going to be about his doctor's reports on his injury.
Thanks, guys.
We'll go next to Josh Gross with ESPN.
Hey, guys. Thanks for taking the call. You sort of talked about the idea of losing pay-per-view is not a terribly bad thing for you. Is there a bit of a silver lining? There was a lot of reports, and there was an idea out there that the tickets weren't selling and the pay-per-view was going to suffer because of that, or at least some part of that. Is this good for your company, this switch?
I think what it's good for is it's good for the fact that, you know, I'm a hardcore MMA fan and Kevin's a hardcore MMA fan, and now millions of MMA fans are going to get to see 3 really incredible fights that we've been building up like crazy and are top tier fights for free. You know, we are going to make the transition into the pay-per-view marketplace. And there were some faulty reports out there about what ticket sales were. I saw reports that even indicated that we'd sold 2,000 tickets, which is absolutely, completely untrue. We're far, far above that. But, you know, we are not, you and I have talked about it before, we're not a pay-per-view model first. You know, our competitors out there are a pay-per-view model first. They do a pay-per-view once every 3 to 5 weeks, whether it's a good card or it's not a good card. And we'll do them when they're spectacular cards. And it's just, you know, like I said, it's great to have partners like Spike and Viacom where if something falls out, we have the right kind of model and the right kind of financial dynamic where we can turn in and say, you know what, let's give this amazing card to fans for free. So, you know, we don't take that tremendous type of hit that somebody who is completely reliant on pay-per-view would take. We'll get into it when we've got amazing fights to give and we've got spectacular premium level events and you know, that'll come. And that'll come. It may come in short order. It may come on a longer time frame.
Yeah. As far as Tito, I mean, it sounds serious. Do you know, did he say exactly what happened, what the injury was at the moment it happened, any kind of description?
What he described to me is he just described intense pain in his neck and said, look, I've got to get in immediately. And he said, I don't really want to fly to Vegas. And then I said, look, I've got somebody here in Orange County you can see. And I got on the phone with him, and he got in literally the next morning. So, you know, exactly, I don't have the specifics as to whether it was a knee or he shot for a takedown or he got what, but you know, I'm just glad we could get him in, and I'm just hopeful, like I said before, that this is something that he can get past.
Okay, and as far as Tito and Rampage go, I mean, they worked, you know, to do some promotion and building up. What's their compensation going to be like for this fight? Can you say?
Literally, the focus has really been what are we going to do with the card at this point. And like I said, with Rampage, my hope is that we can get him fighting within the next 3 weeks. I mean, you know, look, in a perfect world scenario, one that would make us all very happy, Quinton Rampage Jackson is going to fight on Spike TV, you know, before everybody sits down to Thanksgiving dinner. Tito's injured, Tito's out. And fortunately for Tito, he's done quite well financially. He's in great financial stead. So this is a kind of thing where he could make a good decision based on his health as opposed to a decision that he had to be forced into. So I think everybody's pretty good and copacetic on that front.
You know what you paid him, and it was getting close to fight time. Did you feel like, you know, that they were delivering on what you were paying them to do?
Oh, over-delivering? Tito and Rampage are complete and total pros. Rampage has had camera people and lighting people and sound people following him around like he's a Kardashian, and you know, Tito's done every conceivable interview that we've asked him to do. I mean, Rampage was sitting in with, you know, it has been overflow, like trying to get a drink of water out of a fire hose with the media request for these two guys, and they both absolutely over-delivered for us. I mean, I let Kevin speak to it as well, but I got nothing but amazing things to say about the effort and the commitment that these two guys put into promoting this fight.
Yeah, I just echo that, and I'd also say, you know, one of the, you know, and I answered the question about Rampage for real before. One of the reasons it won't be difficult to work on that third episode and change it up and use it for whatever we need to use it for is because Rampage was so generous with his time. Literally, cameras following him since the day this deal was made until right now. So, you know, we have so much material that they won't be a problem, and that's just because these guys, both Rampage and Tito, have just done everything that's been asked of them.
Thank you, guys.
And we'll go next to Steven Morocco with MMAJunkie.com.
Sorry if I'm retreading it all in my question, but I just wanted to make sure that I understood correctly that Attila Vey was the backup plan to fight Rampage. Is that accurate?
I don't know that
at one point
characterize it as that Attila was the backup specifically to fight Rampage. I looked at the situation, and Kevin and I talked about it, and 4 of our 6 top fights on this show involved 205ers. And Veg was back in training, and when I talked to him through the translator, he said, look, I'm back in training. I can be in great shape in 4 to 5 weeks. I think I could be ready to fight. You know, and I made a deal with him where we would pay him an amount of money just to keep training and prepare him. And I think he went down to American Top Team down in Florida, and he's been training there. So the idea was just to have him as a backup in case something happened and the fit was right. I think we were all probably more so envisioning that he would fit into the mix if either Newton or Mo got injured. And they didn't, and they're both in probably the best shape I've ever seen him in. So it wasn't the right fit. It wasn't the right fit.
Speaking of shuffling the lightweights, was there ever any consideration of having Mo fight Rampage?
Yeah, I mean, we talked about everything. We talked through all the dynamics and all the specific. I mean, literally every conceivable alternative we went through, because you don't just, it isn't as if I just picked up the cell phone and called Kevin at the office and said, hey, we have a problem. How about we just put this on Spike? There are a lot of people and a lot of team members. And something that I've talked to you about, it's one of the blessings that I've got on my side is I've got super, super smart people who love MMA and live MMA that are part of the Spike family. And so those conversations are ones where we can get on conference calls and talk through every alternative. And I think probably half dozen people threw up the idea of King Mo and Rampage, and people threw up the idea of Newton and Rampage. I mean, it went around and around and around in terms of different alternatives. But, when you're 8 days out trying to ask world-class fighters who have been preparing for a specific challenge, obviously this Mo fight against Newton is an epic rematch and a huge amount on the line, and both have been preparing for that specific fight. So to try to pull one of those guys out at the last minute and to say, hey, fight one of the most dangerous punchers in the history of mixed martial arts, that's asking an awful lot. And I think, you got to be respectful of what these guys are prepared for and their life focus as well. So there were a lot of thoughts, but this is the one we arrived at, and I think everybody's really comfortable with it.
And I know Josh just kind of asked this in a way, but do you have any more specific language for what exactly happened to Tito's neck as a fracture, in terms of what exactly he fractured in his neck?
I don't. I've got a copy of the X-ray that shows the fracture, but I don't have a doctor's report, and we're going to be getting the full doctor's report from Tito and from his advisors and agents in real short order.
Okay, so for right now, it's just those four fights. Cheick Kongo versus Vinicius stays on the prelims, and that's it.
Yeah, we're actually, as I said, our hyper-focus has been on exactly what's going on up top. And what we did is we looked at it. We made the decision that as pay-per-view worthy as they might have been, we're going to leave, Chandler and King Mo and Eddie and Newton and Daniel and Pat and Riggs and Bronzoulis on this show. Probably we're going to be looking at a 3-hour block on Spike because we've got so many fives on the show and great fights. We're probably going to have the Mike Richman Akop-Stepanian fight on Spike as well. We're working through all the dynamics and trying to figure out what fits where and how. So we don't have all the answers. The answers I can give you right now is that Fight Master finale, Kern's world title fight, Chandler's world title fight, and Mo Newton's interim world title fight will all be on the Spike show.
Okay, so 4 with the possibility of adding more.
Yep.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Sure.
Our next question comes from Wade Eck with MMA H.E.A.T.
Hi, it's actually Karyn Bryant asking the question. Thanks for your time. This is for you, Bjorn, mostly. When this fight was first announced between Rampage and Tito, a lot of people thought, why would you put your two biggest stars together on your first pay-per-view? And obviously I know you want to get, eyeballs, but it almost seemed like maybe we should see them fight somebody else and then lead up so that there was more of a build and that one person didn't potentially lose a fight the first time out. Can you just comment on the philosophy and the thinking behind putting them together so quickly?
Yeah, it was just having been in the fight industry now for 20 plus years. There's an old saying that if there's a good fight to make the good fight. And this was a fight that I'd looked at for a long time, and Kevin and I talked about it at length. That was just, it's two of the giants of MMA. I mean, you look at that, you look at that list, and what is it? It's Randy, it's Chuck, it's Tito, it's Rampage, and maybe Fedor jumps into that mix in some people's minds, but it was just two giants, and they were both. Rampage was in a better place because of the knees, and Tito had overcome the knee and the neck, as weird as that sounds now, given what's happened. but the timing was right, and it just seemed like a good fight to make coming out of the box. You know, I mean, look, sometimes my wife always says, sometimes things happen for a reason. So now you're going to get to see Rampage in a warm-up fight, and God willing, if Tito heals the way we hope he does, you're going to get to see Tito in a warm-up fight at some point. So, you know, it's weird how things work out, but the thought process was it was a great fight, and it was two guys who had a lot to prove and a lot riding on, you know, kind of maintaining their legacy in the fight, and so we put them together.
Okay, and it's actually ironic you mentioned Tito actually tweeted so everything happens for a reason. Sometimes I just wish I knew what that reason was. I don't know if you saw that this morning.
Yeah, well, yep. There
Yeah.
you go.
Well, and when do you maybe you mentioned this, I'm sorry if I missed it. When do you expect that we might be able to hear from Tito, or that he might make an official statement?
I would assume, you know, pretty soon. We just, you know, we wanted to get all this information out and get all the ducks in order in terms of the family here at Viacom and Spike and Bellator. And Tito's been awesome. Like Kevin said, he's been a pure pleasure and a total pro to work with. He's been doing media like crazy, and so he just said, look, I'm going to stay quiet on this. I'm going to let you guys get this amazing card announced for fans for free on Spike, and then, you know, I'll talk when you guys are done.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Sure.
And once again, it's star one if you have a question. We'll go next to Dave Metzler with Wrestling Observer.
Yeah, I mean, as far as so the plan is for Rampage to fight on Spike in a couple of weeks, essentially, right?
Yeah, how cool would that be? Yeah. We're working on it.
And as far as, like, you know, like I think the Rampage Mo thing was brought up. I mean, is there any specific reason why you figured that that's just not going to work out? Was it just so late that that you know, he'd trained so much for the one guy, or you know, did you think about that as far as saving the pay-per-view?
Yeah, you know, you got to give consideration to what Rampage was preparing for and what Mo was preparing for. I mean, Mo is one of the greatest wrestlers that we've got in mixed martial arts. He's had an incredible camp, and that camp's been hyper-focused on avenging the loss to Emmanuel Newton. You know, what a lot of people called the biggest upset of the year last year. I don't know that it was the biggest upset of the year because Newton's a monster, but, you know, you got to, you know, I mean, we're able to do something great for fans here, but you've also got to be really respectful of what the fighters are prepping for. And look, if it had been 4 weeks or 5 weeks or 6 weeks, perhaps Kevin and I would have come to a different conclusion. But, you know, you're talking about weigh-ins happening for this show 7 days from now. So you go to a guy like Rampage, and you go to a guy like Mo, or you go to any number of other fighters that we were thinking about on something like this, and it's just, that's an awful short time frame. That's an awful short time frame to try to get people to make that kind of jump, you know.
And as far as like a pay-per-view, I mean, do you have any kind of like an idea of, we're going to do a pay-per-view in 2014, we're going to do it in the first quarter, second quarter? I mean, any kind of a vague idea of like when you're going to try to debut on pay-per-view at this point now?
We'll see. You know, we'll see. I mean, we're very excited about this you know, this debut, and then Tito got injured. So we'll see. We'll put our heads together. We'll get through next week, which is still going to be a monster event. We've got some incredible production enhancements that are already completely integrated into the show. You know, the most amazing fights that we've ever put on in a single event. Epic Chandler versus Alvarez rematch, and Newton Mo, and Karyn Strauss, et cetera, et cetera. So let us get through that, and then once we've had a chance to get through that, you know, we'll put our heads together and figure out what's next and what makes sense.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Yeah.
And we'll go next to Ken Pishna with MMAweekly.com.
Hey, Bjorn. I just had a question about clarification on Attila Vey. How is it that he was able to prepare to be a backup for this event, but you still have Mo and Newton fighting for an interim title?
Well, what we did is we literally had gone to Attila, and this was long ago, and tried to determine if he was ready to go, and he said he was not ready to commit to a fight. So we had to get things scheduled given the magnitude of this show. So we ultimately signed Newton and Mo to the interim fight, got that locked in, got bout agreements back, and then when I started realizing, you know what happens if something goes sideways here and we want a replacement, we started thinking about a lot of 205 replacements, and then I literally got our translator on the phone and got Attila on the phone and said, what kind of shape are you in? And if I needed you in 5 or 6 weeks, could you be ready? And, you know, his response was, look, I'm training. I'm not 100%, but in 5 to 6 weeks I could be on weight and I could potentially fight. So I had to come up with a structure with Attila that made sense for him financially, which is just basically agreeing to pay him prep money so that he was ready to go in case we wanted to use him. And I'm going to end up cutting him that check. And, you know, it just, given what happened here, like I said, that wasn't the right fit for this equation. But he was ready. He'll get a nice payday, which is awesome. He's a great guy, and he'll be ready to go when we figure out who wins the Newton versus Mo fight next Saturday.
Could you give a little bit more on why he wouldn't be the right fit if he's the guy you had coming in to be the backup plan?
It was just an analysis of what the main event was here, and ultimately, you know, we lost Tito, so the opening really became the opening to fight Rampage. And, you know, there's an awful lot of kind of thought process that went behind it, but are you going to put Attila in against Rampage? What kind of disconnect does that create in terms of your existing champion fighting? I mean, we thought about it. We thought about the potential fits, but the potential fit would have probably necessitated that the team here disrupts the Newton versus Mo fight, figures out one of them to fight Rampage, and then who was first in line? Well, Newton was ultimately first in line, so you'd have to do Newton versus Veg. I mean, there were a lot of moving pieces to it. And, you know, Attila hadn't had a full camp, wasn't 100% ready to go, hadn't had a full 8 weeks to prep, you know, on arms and legs that were 100% ready to go. So it just didn't make sense to kind of force that square peg into a round hole. It wasn't fair to Attila. It wouldn't be fair to Newton and to Mo and to everybody else involved. It just made more sense. He's going to get a nice payday for having worked out and been on weight. And, you know, look, if Emmanuel Newton or King Mo were to get hit by a bus in the coming days, Attila Veg's still got a job to do. But I doubt that'll happen. Those guys are in incredible shape, and they're ready for the fight, and they'll stay away from buses. So I think we're going to be good.
Oh, yeah, let's not tempt fate. So.
Operator, we'll take one more question.
And our last question will come from Steven Rowena with Bleacher Report.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
With Rampage fighting in the immediate future, are you committed to having him at light heavyweight, or could you be setting up something with somebody like the loser of Spartan versus Congo or LeVar Johnson?
Great question. You know, Rampage was down about 220, which is awesome a week out from the fight. He's in incredible shape. I think he sent out some pictures. I don't know if he sent them on Twitter, but I got some of them on text, and he looks great. He's in incredible condition. So we'll have to see. We'll have to see how long the delay is, and then how that impacts his camp and his diet, et cetera. I mean, I know he was in a very substantial cut because, you know, Rampage is a big human being, and he's got a lot of weight to cut to make 205. But we'll see. We might make it as a catchweight fight. You know, first we got to find the opponent. I got to go to our talent development team, who's awesome, and figure out who that would be, and see what the best avails are, and then figure out whether it would be a catchweight or whether it would still be at 05. I don't have an answer for that.
All right, thank you very much.
Sure.
Okay, everybody, thank you for joining us. Again, if you want a transcript, please email me. Any further questions, please contact myself, David Schwartz, or Anthony Mazuka from Bellator. Thanks so much.
And ladies and gentlemen, that does conclude today's conference. We thank you for your participation.